So, um, good afternoon to all of you. This is the continuation of my report. So, about the tobacco-related disorder. So, the sample case is Amanda started smoking in fifth grade, and by the time she was 13 years old, she smoked every day. Over time, smoking crept into every corner of her life. She was so addicted that she ducked outside to smoke throughout the day. Even during Wisconsin's bitter cold winters, while in college, newly engaged in still smoking a pack a day, Amanda learned she was pregnant. She tried to quit, but juggling work and classes was stressful. She thought cigarettes helped deal with stress. She soon learned that smoking only made things worse. Her baby was born 2 months early, which is a danger for all pregnant women who smoke. The tiny baby girl spent weeks in a hospital incubator. I knew that smoking was bad. I didn't think I would have premature baby, said Amanda. I couldn't hold her much in those first weeks time I'll never get back. Smoking took that from me. Then the clinical description, tobacco-related disorders. The nicotine in tobacco is a psychoactive substance that produces patterns of dependence, tolerance, and withdrawal. Tobacco-related disorders, according to the DSM-5, does not describe an intoxication pattern for tobacco-related disorders. Rather, it lists withdrawal symptoms, which include depressed mood, insomnia, irritability, anxiety, difficulty concentrating, res- restlessness, and increased appetite and weight gain. Nicotine in small doses stimulates the central nervous system. It can relieve stress and improve mood, but it can also cause high blood pressure and increase the risk of heart disease and cancer. According to Nick Bain et al. In 2012, high doses can blur your vision, cause confusion, lead to conversion, and sometimes even cause death. So we know that the tobacco-related disorders is a person that using tobacco, but they are overdose, and that's why there's some effect to their body, not only to their physical body, but also to their behavior. So because it is include to the some symptoms in such as mood, insomnia, irritability, anxiety, and difficulty concentrating, restlessness, and increased appetite and weight gain. So it also can increase the risk of heart disease and cancer. So, yan po. Then the diagnostic features. So you can see here that the tobacco use disorder, a problematic pattern tobacco use leading to clinically significant impairment or distress, as manifested by at least two of the following occurring within a 12 months period. Tobacco is often taken in larger amounts or over a longer period than was intended. So also it is specified in a chronic severity, mild presence of two or three symptoms. And according to this DSM-5 TR, diagnostic problem, it is a problematic part of tobacco use leading to clinically significant. Tobacco is often taken in larger amounts of over a larger period than was intended. So, yun po. Then next, the prevalence statistics. Tobacco kills up to half of its users. Tobacco kills more than 8 million people each year. More than 7 million of those deaths are the result of direct tobacco use, while around 1.2 million are the result of non-smokers being exposed to second-hand smoke. Over 80% of the world's 1.3 billion tobacco users live in low and middle income countries. In 2020, 22.3% of the global population used tobacco, 36.7% of all men, and 7.8% of the world's women. To address the tobacco epidemic, according to the WHO, or World Health Organization, member states adopted the WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control (FCTC) 2003. Currently, 182 countries have ratified this treaty. So the WHO, World Health Organization, are making some organizations in order uh, to decrease the tobacco disorder, the use of the tobacco, because it is like a pandemic that should eliminate. So, and diagnostic and the diagnostic differential diagnosis. So, alpha 1 antitrypsin AAT, this is according to the medical doctor. Uh, Also with collaboration of the psychiatric and the psychologist. So they they using the alpha 1 antitrypsin or AAT deficiency and the angina pectoris. So these people, this according to them, that according to their diagnosis, some disease are shown to the people that are exposed to the tobacco. So the people are that had uh, tobacco disorders, not only those using, but those people that are not using, but they are exposed to the tobacco. So they shown that there's an angina alpha 1 antitrypsin deficiency and also the angina pectoris, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or COPD, and depression, emphysema, non-small cell lung cancer, and small cell lung cancer. So the assessment tools, wait, wait. Assessment tools, they are using cage questionnaire modified for smoking behavior, and the 4Cs test, Fader-Strom test. Then in the causes, risk, and prognostic factors, temperamental. Individuals with externalizing personality traits are more likely to initiate tobacco use. Children with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or conduct disorder, and adults with depressive, bipolar, anxiety personality, psychotic, or other substance use disorder are at higher risk for starting and continuing tobacco use and of tobacco use disorder. And the environmental, persons with low incomes and low educational levels are more likely to initiate tobacco use and are less likely to stop. And genetic factors contribute to the onset of tobacco use, the continuation of the tobacco use, and the development of tobacco use disorder with a degree of heritability equivalent to that observed with other substance use disorders. Some of this risk is specific to tobacco and some is common with the vulnerability to developing any substance use disorder. And the treatment, cognitive, some medical doctors and psychiatrists, psychologists, according to diagnosis the, and their treatment are should cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, text messaging with web-based services and social media support, wherein the person that had a disorder, uh, in order for them to be confidential to their sickness or disorder, they should get some contact numbers and give them some advice or give them some clinical message based on their disease. So they use text messaging, based services, and social media support, and the telephone support and quit lines, and the mindfulness, motivational interviewing, psychotherapy, group therapy, and family therapy. And then some another case, uh, several months of denying the seriousness of his heroin habit, Gary B. finally enrolled in a residential treatment program that featured methadone maintenance, peer support, cognitive behavioral therapy, and job retraining. Although Gary initially responded well to the program, he soon began to feel depressed. The staff reassured him that experiencing depression during opioid withdrawal is common. Gary started seeing a psychologist for individual therapy. Psychotherapy helped Gary identify unhealthy relationships in his life and examine the parallels between his independence on these relationships and his dependence on drugs. He also began to understand how he often turned to drugs to escape his problems. The therapy then focused on practicing coping skills and exploring healthy alternatives to drug use. Gary worked hard during his therapy and made considerable progress. Gary was satisfied with the changes he was making in his life until the day he realized that he was eagerly looking forward to his daily methadone dose. Although Gary had friends who became addicted to methadone, it was a shock when it happened to him. He decided almost immediately to terminate his methadone maintenance program. The withdrawal process was physically and mentally painful, and Gary often doubted his ability to function without methadone. However, by joining a support group composed of others who were discontinuing opioid use, he was eventually able to complete methadone withdrawal. Gary had never imagined that the most difficult part of his heroin treatment would be giving up methadone. So in this case, we can see that Gary, one of his coping strategy is to using methadone, but he already exposed to that kind of drugs. That's why he had also contributed some disorders, even though they are undertaking some uh, psychotherapy and any kinds of treatment by the psychologists and the doctors. Okay. And the clinical description, the word opiate. The word opiate refers to natural chemicals in the opium poppy that have a narcotic effect. They relieve pain, induce sleep in some circumstances that they can cause opioid-related disorders. The broader term opioids refers to the family of substances that includes natural opiates, synthetic variations, heroin, methadone, hydrocodone, uh, oxycodone, and the comparable substances that occur naturally in the brain, enkephalins, beta endorphins, and daily routines. This is according to the Borg et al. In 2015. So opiate-induced euphoria, drowsiness, and slow breathing. High doses can lead to death if respiration is completely depressed. Opiates are also analgesics, substances that help relieve pain. Be- but because of the overdose, it become a disorder to the person that using that opioid. So people are sometimes given morphine before and after surgery calm to calm and to calm them and help block pain. So the diagnostic features and also the other diagnostic criteria is coming from the DSM-5 PR. Prevalence statistics, the term opioids includes compounds that are extracted from the poppy seed as well as semi-synthetic and synthetic compounds with similar properties that can inter- interact with opioid receptors in the brain. Opioids are commonly used for the treatment of pain and include medicines such as morphine and fentanyl and tramadol. Their non-medical use, prolonged use, misuse, and use without medical supervision can lead to opioid dependence and other health problems. Due to their pharmacological effects, opioids can cause breathing difficulties, and opioid overdose can lead to death. Worldwide, about 0.5 million deaths are attributable to drug use. More than 70% of these deaths are related to opioids, with more than 30% of those deaths caused by overdose. There are effective treatment interventions for opioid dependence that can decrease the risk of overdose, yet less than 10% of people who need such treatment are receiving it. The medication naloxone can prevent deaths from an opioid overdose if administered administered in time. And the differential diagnosis is opioid-induced mental disorders, as intoxications. So alcohol intoxications and sedative of hypnotic intoxication can cause a clinical picture that resembles opioid intoxication. A diagnosis of alcohol for sedative hypnotic intoxication can usually be made based on the absence of pupillary constriction or the lack of response to a naloxone challenge. In some cases, intoxication may be due both to opioids and to alcohol or other sedatives. In these cases, naloxone administration will not reverse all of the sedative's effects, while response to administration of naloxone can support the diagnosis of opioid intoxication. Non-response may be due to the coingestion of an opioid with another drug, benzodiazepine alcohol, or to ingestion of a higher dose of and/or higher potency opioid, or fentanyl, it is called fentanyl also. So opioid-induced mental disorders. Opioid intoxication is distinguished from opioid-induced mental disorders. Opioid-induced depressive disorder will onset during the intoxication because the symptoms depressed mood in the latter disorder and the excess of those usually associated with opioid intoxication predominate in the clinical presentation and are severe enough to warrant clinical attention. So the comorbidity, given the typical overlap of opioid intoxication with opioid use disorder, see comorbidity under the opioid use disorder for details about co-occurring conditions that are likely to be encountered. And the assessment tools according to the medical doctor. So the current opioid mission or COMM and the opioid risk tool ORT and the patient medication questionnaire PMQ. Process risk and prognostic factors. Poverty. So poverty is one of the cause of the opioid disorder. So the people are trying to cope with the problems of poverty. So the unemployment, family history of substance abuse, if the family had some members that are using drugs. So some members also that are not using drugs, maybe they are the influence, they can influence the people. The people are influenced by those with family using the drugs and personal history of substance abuse. Young age, history of criminal activity or legal problems, including PUIs. Regular contact with high-risk people or high-risk environments. And problems with past employers, family members, and friends with mental disorder. Risk-taking or thrill-seeking behavior, heavy tobacco use, history of severe depression or anxiety, stressful circumstances, prior drug or alcohol rehabilitation. And the treatment, so it should be group therapy, family therapy, and talk therapy or psychotherapy, and also by spiritual practice. The case, so October, this is the sample case on October 6, 2017. 16-year-old Henry McDougall was with a 19-year-old friend dabbing marijuana using an inhaler to breathe in the smoke of highly potent marijuana concentrates that are up to 99% THC. The older teen took videos of Henry dabbing the concentrates and again after he passed out. The older teen allowed Henry to get in his car and drive home shortly after this. On the way home, Henry passed out again, but this time he was behind the wheel. He drove through a stop sign and was hit by an oncoming semi-truck, and he died a few hours later. In an effort to honor the legacy of his son, Gordon has become a vocal opponent of marijuana legalization in the hopes that no other parent suffers the grip of losing their child because of marijuana use. And the clinical description. So cannabis or called marijuana is the most routinely used illegal substance. Marijuana is the name given to the dried parts of the cannabis for hemp plant. Cannabis grows wild throughout the tropical and temperate regions of the world, which accounts for one of its nicknames, weed. Reactions to cannabis usually include mood swings, otherwise normal experiences seem extremely funny, or the person might enter a dreamlike state in which seems to stand still. So that's why the person that using or exposed to the marijuana, uh, one of the uh, one of the effect of these drugs are sila lagi silang tumatawa and they are seeing things that are not seen by the normal. So users often report heightened sensory experiences, seeing vivid colors or appreciating the subtleties of music, perhaps more than any other drug. However, cannabis can produce different reactions in people. It is not uncommon for someone to report having no reaction to the first use of the drug. It also appears that people can turn off the high if they are sufficiently motivated, according to the Jagger 2012. The feelings of well-being produced by small doses can change to paranoia, hallucinations, and dizziness when larger doses are taken. And the diagnostic features, um, and also from DSM-TR. The prevalence statistics: 22.2 million individuals in the United States aged 12 or older reporting that they have used marijuana in the past 30 days. This according to SAMHSA 2014. About 24 million people currently use marijuana, making it the most popular illicit drug in America. In 2016, nearly 4 million people were addicted to marijuana or experiencing significant marijuana-related problems. Most people who abuse marijuana do not seek treatment. The differential diagnosis, so other substance intoxication, so cannabis intoxication may resemble intoxication with other types of substances. However, in contrast to cannabis intoxication, or alcohol intoxication and sedative, hypnotic, or anxiolytic intoxication frequently decrease appetite, increase aggressive behavior, and produce nystagmus or ataxia. Hallucinogens in the low doses may cause a clinical picture that resembles cannabis intoxication. Uh, Phencyclidine, like cannabis, can be smoked and also causes perceptual changes. But phencyclidine intoxication is much more likely to cause ataxia or aggressive behavior. Cannabis-induced mental disorders. Cannabis intoxication is distinguished from cannabis-induced mental disorders or cannabis-induced anxiety disorder with onset during intoxication because the symptoms, the anxiety in these latter disorders in this exist, they usually associated with cannabis. Intoxication predominate in the clinical presentation and are severe enough to warrant the independent clinical attention and the comorbidity given the typical overlap of cannabis intoxication with cannabis use disorder. See comorbidity under the cannabis use disorder. Far more detail about co-occurring conditions that are likely to be encountered. And the assessment tools with collaboration of medical doctor and psychiatry. And they are using ACCU or baseline assessment, ACCU personal feedback report, a cannabis problems questionnaire or CPQ, adolescent cannabis problem question or CPQA, adolescent cannabis problems questionnaire or CPQA as short version for screening, and the severity dependent scale or SDS, the cannabis use problems identification test, and CUPID, high risk confidence questionnaire, timely follow back, and the management of cannabis use disorder and related issues, a clinician guide, and the record in cannabis self-monitoring diary. And the causes, risk, and prognostic factors. The risk and prognostic factors among cannabis users. The propensity to experience cannabis withdrawal is moderately heritable, indicating genetic influence. The prevalence and severity of cannabis withdrawal are greater among heavier cannabis users, particularly those seeking treatment for cannabis use disorder. Withdrawal severity may also be related to the presence and severity of comorbid symptoms of mental disorders. So the continuation of this is there's some factors that can affect this the vulnerability, so coming from the biological and psychological and social. Then the exposure, modifying factors and consequences of those disorders or those drugs. And the treatment, cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational enhancement therapy, MET or CBT. MET, CBT plus contingency management. So the MET is management enhancement therapy. It is effective for engaging ambivalent individuals abstinence based. The same leads to longer periods of continuous absent abstinence during treatment. CBT works to enhance abstinence durability following treatment. And also it could include the family therapy, psychotherapy, group therapy, and this uh, one of the important is the practicing of the religion or spiritual practices can help to remove the anxiety, remove the person from the disorder of the practicing of this overdosing of drugs. So the another case is the this one example case. Hendrix was a famous singer and guitar player who was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and also called a star in Hollywood's Walk of Fame. Jimi Hendrix also had the opportunity to headline for the music festival in Woodstock. Throughout his life, Jimi experimented with drugs such as LSD, marijuana, speed, and sleeping pills. He died as a result of taking sleeping pills and alcohol, which later caused asphyxiation by his own vomit while sleeping. And the clinical descriptions. Our topic is related to the hallucinogen related disorder. So, in the clinical description, the LSD or lysergic acid diethyl diethylamide, sometimes referred to as acid, is the most common hallucinogenic drug. It is produced synthetically in laboratories, although naturally occurring derivatives of this grain, fungus, or ergot have been found historically. LSD largely remained in the laboratory until the 1960s, when it was first produced illegally for recreational use. There are a number of other hallucinogens, some occurring naturally in a variety of plants. Psilocybin found in certain species of mushrooms. Lysergic acid amide found in the seeds of the morning glory plant. Dimethyl tryptamine, DMT, found in the bark of the virula tree, which grows in South and Central America. And mescaline, found in the peyote cactus plant. And penicillin or PCT is snorted, smoked, or injected intravenously, and it causes impulsivity and aggressiveness. And according to the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for hallucinogen intoxication are similar for cannabis. Perceptual changes such as the subjective intensification of perceptions, depersonalization, and hallucinations. Physical symptoms include pupillary dilation, rapid heartbeat, sweating, and blurred vision. This according to the American Psychiatric Association in 2013. And the diagnostic features, this one, and also according to the DSM-5, the problematic pattern of hallucinogen or other Penicillin use leading to clinically significant impairment of distress as manifested by at least two of the following occurring with a 12-month period. So the hallucinogen is often taken in larger amounts or over a longer period than was intended. There is a persistent desire and unsuccessful efforts to cut down or control hallucinogen use. A great deal time is spent in activities necessary to obtain the hallucinogen, use the hallucinogen, or recover from its effect. Craving or a strong desire or urge to use the hallucinogen. Recurrent hallucinogen use resulting in a failure to fulfill major rule of obligation at work, school, or home. Repeated absences from work or work performance related to hallucinogen use. Hallucinogen-related abstinence, suspension, or expulsion from alcohol, neglect of children or household, continued hallucinogen use despite having persistent or recurring. So the prevalence statistics, other hallucinogen use disorder is rare. In the US general population, about 0.1% of individuals aged 12 or older endorse the symptoms of past 12 months hallucinogen use. Uh, this hallucinogen use disorder in 2018. So the rate was 0.2% among those ages 12 to 17, 0.4% among those ages 18 to 25, and 0.1% among those aged 26 and older. And the prevalence higher in the US clinical samples. So 19% in adolescents in treatment. And among select groups of individuals who use hallucinogens frequently, recent heavy ecstasy use in the United States and Australia, 73.5% of adults and 77% of adolescents have a problematic pattern of use that may meet adults' hallucinogen use disorder criteria. So the differential diagnosis, there's also other substances disorder and hallucinogen intoxication, hallucinogen induced mental disorder, and also have the comorbidity is other as already hallucinogen use disorders highly associated with cocaine use disorder, stimulant use disorder, other substance use disorder. tobacco, nicotine or use disorder, any personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and panic attacks. The assessment tools, so medical doctors recommend, and also the psychiatric recommend also the Addiction Severity Index, or ASI, Composite International Diagnostic Interview, or CIDI, Structured Clinical Interview for DSM-4, SCIT, and the Alcohol Use Disorders and Associated Disabilities Interview Schedule, or AU-DADES, and the Psychiatric Research Interview for Substance and Mental Disorder, PRISM, and Semi-Structured Assessment for Drug Dependence and Alcoholism, or SADA, and the causes, risk, and prognostic factors. Experimental, the use of specific hallucinogens, or the ecstasy or salvia, has been linked with high sensation seeking. And the environmental, on the basis of research of the United States, environmental risk factors of other hallucinogen use disorder include higher income, lower education, being never married, and residing in urban areas. Early onset of hallucinogen use has also been linked to transition to hallucinogen use disorder. Peer use of other drugs also highly associated with ecstasy and salvia use. And the genetic and physiological among male twins, total variance due to additive genetics has been estimated to range from 26% to 79%, with inconsistent evidence for shared environmental influences. And the treatment, calming environment, observation and monitoring until the person is sober. Sometimes anti-anxiety drugs such as benzodiazepines, sometimes mental health treatment. Most users do not seek treatment for the effects of hallucinogens. A quiet dark room and calm, non-threatening talk can help users who are having a bad trip. They need reassurance that the effects are caused by the drug and will end. If anxiety is severe, benzodiazepines or the sedatives such as lorazepam may help people who experience a prolonged psychosis may need mental health treatment. This one, the causes of substance-related disorder, psychological influences and biological influences, which is the person are being exposed to the drugs. A simple case, an 83-year-old man who started an online casino gambling from the age of 80 years, leading to debts that exceed 30,000 euro. He underwent a full clinical and neuropsychological assessment without any evidence of cognitive impairment of any associated neurodegenerative disease. However, he had risk factors for GD, including adjustment disorder, stressful life events, previous offline casino GD or gambling disorder when 50 years old, and dysfunctional personality traits. The change to online gambling disorder may have been due to his isolation, movement difficulties, and his high level of education, which facilitated his access to the internet. Care management focus on individual cognitive behavioral therapy. So the clinical descriptions of our disorder is gambling disorder. Involves repeated problem gambling behavior. The behavior leads to problems for the individual, families, and social adults and adolescents with gambling disorder. Have a trouble controlling their gambling, they will continue even when it causes significant problems. Prognostic factors and the prevalence statistics. According to National Council on Problem Gaming, 2 million adults in the US meet severe gambling criteria in a given year. The council reports that another 4 to 6 million American adults have mild or moderate problems. Diagnostic differential diagnosis. Diagnosis of gambling disorder requires at least four of the following during the past years. need to gamble with increasing amounts to achieve the desired excitement, restless or irritable when trying to cut down or stop gambling, repeated unsuccessful efforts to control, cut back on or stop gambling, frequent thoughts about gambling such as reliving past gambling or planning future gambling, often gambling when feeling distressed. After losing money, gambling often returning to get even. This is referred to as chasing one's losses, lying to hide gambling activity, risking or losing a close relationship, a job, or a school or a job opportunity because of gambling, relying on others to help with money problems caused by gambling. And people with gambling disorder can have periods where symptoms subside. The gambling may not seem problem with between periods of more severe symptoms. Gambling disorder tends to run in families. Factors such as trauma and social inequality, particularly in women, who can be risk factors. Sometimes can be given as early as adolescence or as late as older adulthood. Men are more likely to start a younger age. Women are more likely to start later in life. Assessment tools. Some popular assessment tools include the Canadian Problems Gambling Index, or CPGI, an evaluation of this an evaluation of the scale in its accompanying profiler software in a clinical setting. Journal of Gambling Studies. And the other one is the South Oaks Gambling Screen (SOGS). This one is a new instrument for the identification of pathological gamblers. And the other one is South Oaks Gambling Screen Revised Adolescents or SOGS-RAC. This one is a cut point analysis. And the other one is a Massachusetts Gambling Screen or MAGS. Pathological among these are the pathological gambling among adolescents. A journal of gambling studies. And the causes, risk, and prognostic factors of problem gamblers are at increased risk of suicide. Addiction and substance use disorder, internet gaming. Studies have found that the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and orbitofrontal cortex, which is one of the parts in the brain, so do not function as normal in those with gambling disorder. Poor impulse control and risky decisions are both processes that involve ventromedial prefrontal cortex, and those individuals with higher problems in these areas also show poorer response to treatment and higher relapse rates. This one is according to Yao Yip and Potenza 2015. So the treatment is the cognitive behavioral therapy or the CBT, psychodynamic therapy, group therapy, and family therapy. And the impulse control disorders. So a number of the disorders we described in this book start with an irresistible impulse, usually one that will ultimately be harmful to the person affected. Typically, the person experiences increasing tension leading up to the act and sometimes pleasurable anticipation of acting on the impulse. For example, paraphilia such as pedophilia, sexual attraction to children, eating disorders, and the substance-related disorder in this chapter often commence with temptation or desire that are destructive but difficult to resist. According to the DSM-5, includes three additional impulse control disorders: intermittent explosive disorder, kleptomania, and pyromania. So, according to Mori, Sano, Stan, and Musaino, 2012. And the clinical descriptions first is kleptomania, recurrent failure to resist urge to steal things that are not needed for personal use or their monetary value. This disorders appears to be rare, but it is not well studied, partly because of the stigma associated with identifying oneself as acting out this illegal behavior. Some studies suggest that the disorder may be more common in women and that it typically starts in adolescence. Yeah, this one according to Yao et al. 2015. And the diagnosis process, the patterns described by those with this disorder, a similar the person begins to feel a sense of tension just before the stealing, which is followed by feelings of pleasure or relief while the theft is committed. So, according to Grant Podlag in Kim 2010. So, people with kleptomania score high on assessment of impulsivity, reflecting their inability to judge the immediate gratification of stealing compared with the long-term negative consequences. For example, arrest, embarrassment. Grant, this one according to Grant in Kim 2002. Patients with kleptomania often report having no memory or amnesia about the act of shoplifting. This one according to Hollander, Berlin, and Stein 2009. Brain imaging research supports this observation with one study finding damage in areas of the brain associated with poor decision making. Inferior, one of the parts in the brain is in the inferior frontal regions. This one according to Grant, Korea, and Brennan Cron 2006. And the treatment this appears to high comorbidity between kleptomania and mood disorders, and to a lesser extent with substance abuse and dependence, according to Grant et al. 2010. Some refer to kleptomania as an antidepressant behavior or a reaction on the part of some to relieve unpleasant feelings through stealing, according to Fishbane 1987. To date, a few reports of treatment exist, and these involve either behavioral interventions or use of antidepressant medication. In one exception, naltrexone, the opioid antagonist used in the treatment of alcoholism, was somewhat effective in reducing the urge to steal in persons diagnosed with kleptomania, according to Grant Kim and Odlag 2009. So another case is the pyromania, or the clinical description of pyromania is an impulse control disorder that involves having an irresistible urge to set fires. Again, the patterns parallel that of kleptomania, where the person feels attention or an arousal before setting a fire, and a sense of gratification or relief while the fire burns. These individuals will also be preoccupied with fires and the associated equipment involved in setting and putting out these fires, according to Dickinson Sugarman 2002. The diagnosis causes the pyromania is diagnosed only about 3% of arsonists, according to Lindbergh, Politani, and Berkonen 2005. Because arsonists can include people who set fires for monetary gain or revenge rather than to satisfy a physical or psychological urge. Because so few people are diagnosed with these disorders, research on etiology and treatment is limited, according to Dykens and Sugarman 2012. Research that has been done conducted follows the general group of arsonists, of which only a small percentage have pyromania, and examines the role of a family history of fire-setting along with the comorbid impulse disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and alcoholism. Treatment is generally cognitive behavioral and involves helping the person identify signals that initiate the urge, and teaching coping strategies to resist the temptation to start fires. These are according to Bompas, Fagelman, and Briggs, 1983, and McGrath, Marshall, and Pryor, 1979. And another disorder is the intermittent explosive disorder. This is a clinical description. People with intermittent explosive disorder have episodes in which they act on aggressive impulses that result in serious assault or destruction of property, according to Kakuro and Makowski 2010. Although it is unfortunately common among the general population to observe aggressive outbursts when you rule out of the influence of other disorder, for example, antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, psychotic disorder, or Alzheimer's disease, or substance use disorders that often diagnosed. In a rare but important large study of more than 9,000 people, researchers found that the lifetime prevalence of this disorder was 7.3%, according to Kessler et al. 2006. And diagnosis process research is at the beginning of stage for intermittent exposure disorder and focus on the brain regions involved as well as the influence of neurotransmitters such as serotonin and norepinephrine and testosterone levels, along with their interaction with psychosocial influences, stress, disrupted family life, and parenting styles. Recent studies have proposed that there is a disruption of the orbital frontal cortex role, the executive part of the brain, in inhibiting amygdala activation, the emotional part of the brain, combined with changes in the serotonin system in those with his disorder, right? So, according to Yahoo et al. 2015. The cognitive behavioral intervention, for example, helping the person identify and avoid triggers for aggressive outbursts. In approaches modeled after drug treatment appear that most effective of these drug individuals, although few controlled studies yet exist, but according to Markowski, Noblet, and then Defend, Basher, and Colan, and Kakar, 2008. 2008. So these are the those people that having impulse controls are trying to cope with their disorder. So even though they are harming other people or harming the environment, so they are going to get some relief, but the relief are very harmful and destructible to the other people and environment. So, thank you. This is the end of my report.